We do not stumble into our future, we build it, quietly, invisibly, day by day, and more often than not, we build it through the very things we refuse to look at. You think you're stuck because nothing is happening. But in truth, something is happening. Every time you scroll past that responsibility, every time you say, "Not today," you are casting a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. The ignored corners of your life are not empty. They are pregnant with potential. The unopened book, the unfinished conversation, the health you keep promising to fix, the dream that makes you uncomfortable, these aren't side notes. They are the blueprint, and you're leaving them unread. Our greatest opportunities rarely scream, they whisper. But we are conditioned to listen only for noise, achievement, applause, urgency. We ignore the still, quiet places where transformation begins. Avoidance is not rest. It is a quiet rebellion against your own future. You think ignoring it makes it go away. But what you're ignoring is not disappearing, it's growing roots. The life you want is hiding in the life you're avoiding. That phone call you keep postponing, that habit you still haven't broken, that truth you won't admit. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's your teacher. We avoid because we are afraid of failing, afraid of changing, afraid that once we start, we'll have to keep going. But what's worse than fear is regret. Regret is simply the echo of ignored opportunities. So ask yourself, what conversation are you avoiding? What decision have you delayed so long it's become part of the wallpaper? What truth do you keep walking past with your eyes down? Your future is not waiting for you, it is watching you, watching how you spend your minutes, watching what you prioritize, watching how often you say tomorrow. But listen closely, the future is not a distant island. It's being built quietly in the choices you make today. Start where you are. Look where you've refused to look. Pick up what you dropped. Face what you fear, and you'll find what you need. The ignored, the postponed, the uncomfortable, that's the path. Not around it, not over it. Through it, because your future isn't missing, it's buried beneath your avoidance. And it's calling you now, not with thunder, but with a whisper that says, start here, start now, start with what you've ignored. Destiny is not made in sudden moments, it's made in unnoticed choices. You don't need a catastrophe to change your life. You just need 1,000 small decisions, ignored, delayed, or made without thought. Most lives don't fall apart overnight, they fade. 15 extra minutes of sleep. One more skipped workout. A conversation you say you'll have. Later, the project you keep pushing to next week. Each one seems small. Each one feels harmless. Each one lies to you. The lie of small neglect is that it's temporary. It rarely is. The moment you delay is the moment you start to drift, and drifting is dangerous because you don't feel the motion. You just wake up one day, far from where you meant to be. We imagine the future as something grand and distant, but it begins in our daily rituals. What you say yes to, what you say no to, what you allow, what you ignore. Every tiny choice carries weight, not because it changes everything instantly, but because it changes you. Habits are just choices we repeated long enough to forget we had a choice. No one decides to fail. No one plans to waste their life, but many people. Most even choose ease in the moment, and ease always costs more than effort. The uncomfortable truth is, your future isn't being stolen, it's being sold, one lazy excuse at a time. You think it's just today. You'll try harder tomorrow. You'll start fresh next week, but tomorrow is made of today's ingredients, and what you're feeding it is stale. We spend years building momentum, and seconds killing it. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. You'll get back on track. You've done well before, but progress is not memory. Progress is movement, and if you're not moving, you're decaying. The person you're becoming is watching every moment you excuse yourself from effort. It watches when you pretend not to care. It watches when you silence that inner nudge. It watches when you settle for good enough. Again, and slowly, your potential starts adjusting its expectations of you. Neglect is a quiet architect. It draws your future in the shadows of what you ignore. The skipped practice, the missed chance, the short cut you knew better than to take, all of it adds up, but not in ways you notice, only in ways you regret. We often blame time for what is really the result of tiny betrayals to our own vision. You had time. You had strength. You had clarity, but you spent it on comfort, on distractions, on things that felt easier than becoming who you were meant to be. A future never built on discipline will collapse under pressure. And it won't be because you weren't talented. It won't be because you weren't called. It will be because you kept saying, "Not yet," to the very thing that held your transformation. Greatness is not a giant leap. It's 1,000 small steps, taken when no one is watching. You want a breakthrough, but you ignore the basics. You want success, but you skip the setup. You want meaning, but you bypass the discipline that makes it possible. Small choices are not small. They are seeds, and every seed carries a tree. But not every tree will grow. Only the ones you water, and the ones you forget. They grow too, but they grow into weeds, into guilt, into stories you tell yourself later, to explain why you never became what you knew you could. The future isn't hiding from you, it's waiting in the pile of things you've labeled not urgent, and the longer they sit there, the heavier they become, not because they change, but because you change. You become someone used to ignoring the quiet voice that tells you, "Do it now." The small things you overlook today become the loud regrets of your future, so pay attention to the moment, to the decision, to the thing you'd rather avoid, because your future is being written right now, and every sentence starts with what you're doing when no one else is looking. Most of what we label as not important is actually just uncomfortable. You didn't skip it because it didn't matter. You skipped it because it asked something of you. Time, effort, honesty, and discomfort wears many masks: procrastination, excuses, busyness. Comfort doesn't knock, it whispers, and its favorite word is later. Later, when you're ready. Later, when things slow down. Later, when it hurts less to try. But later is where dreams go to dissolve, because later never comes gently. It comes with rust, with regret, with a version of you who can't remember what it felt like to be hungry for more. We don't fear the hard thing, we fear what it reveals about us. What if we're not good enough? What if we fail? What if we change? And no one notices, so we choose what feels safe, what feels familiar. What keeps us from having to confront the gap between who we are and who we could be? Comfort is the cage that looks like a couch. You sit in it long enough and you stop asking questions, you stop reaching. You stop remembering that growth was once the goal. It starts small, you skip a workout. You ignore that inner nudge. You lower the bar just a little. Then it becomes a habit, then a personality, then a life. The tragedy isn't that we aim too high and fail. It's that we aim too low and succeed and call it peace. But it's not peace, it's quiet panic. It's numbness with a routine. It's joy traded for predictability. And the worst part, you get good at it. You learn how to function inside a comfort zone that slowly erases your edge. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's your compass. That sting you feel when you think of doing the hard thing. That's where your breakthrough lives, not beyond the discomfort, inside it, because the thing you're avoiding, that conversation, that discipline, that decision, it's not a wall, it's a mirror. Discomfort is a test, not of your strength, but of your willingness to face the truth. Can you sit with the uneasiness of starting over? Can you endure the awkwardness of being a beginner again? Can you bear the silence after doing the right thing when no one claps? If not, comfort wins. And when comfort wins, you lose the version of you that was willing to risk being more. The life you want will cost you the life that feels good right now. You can't have both. You can't stay in the warm safety of familiarity and also touch the edge of your calling. You have to choose temporary ease or long-term meaning, numbing routines or raw growth. But growth is not glamorous, it's lonely, it's quiet, it's 1,000 unseen battles against your own resistance. The most dangerous place to live is the one where nothing challenges you. No challenge equals no stretch equals no change equals no future. And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes comfort feels like healing, but it's actually hiding. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're just avoiding the next level. You think you're waiting for the right time, but you're really hoping it passes without asking too much of you. You think you're resting, but you're slowly forgetting what effort even felt like. Every dream worth chasing will offend your comfort zone. It will demand early mornings. It will require difficult conversations. It will call for sacrifices your past self would argue against. But your past self doesn't get to decide your future anymore. Comfort asks, what's the least I can do to get by? Purpose asks, what more can I become? And only one of those voices will still be with you at the end. So when you feel the pull to step back, ask yourself, am I tired? Or am I terrified of the stretch? Because the truth is the discomfort you keep avoiding, is the door you've been waiting for. And no one else can open it, not for you, not without you. We rarely ignore what's meaningless. We ignore what's meaningful, because it demands something of us. You didn't forget it, you buried it, because every time you see it, that goal, that decision, that truth, it whispers a challenge you don't feel ready to accept. We call it unimportant, but deep down, we know it holds weight. You scroll past it. You walk around it. You talk about everything but it. Because if you faced it, you'd have to move, you'd have to change, you'd have to admit that the thing you've been avoiding might be the very thing that would transform you. Avoidance is not forgetfulness, it's fear in disguise, and fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hides behind fake priorities, tasks that make you feel busy, so you don't have to feel convicted, conversations that distract you, so you don't have to sit with the one you've been avoiding with yourself. We silence what matters most by surrounding it with noise, and we become experts at explaining it away. That's not the right time, I'm not qualified yet, it's not that serious, I'll circle back later, but you never do, because you know once you truly look at it, you'll never be able to unsee it. You'll never be able to go back to pretending it's not yours to carry. The truth we ignore the longest is usually the truth that was meant to change us first. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you don't care. It's that you know this thing, this calling, this choice, this inner nudge will require you to become someone else. And becoming someone else means letting go of who you've been clinging to for safety. We don't ignore because we're careless. We ignore because we know deep down we'll be accountable once we engage. Once you start, you can't keep blaming the timing. You can't keep hiding behind preparation. You can't keep saying, I didn't know, because you did know. You just didn't feel ready to hold the weight of that knowing. But ignoring something doesn't make it lighter. It makes it louder. You feel it when you're quiet. You feel it when you're alone. You feel it when people praise you for things you know aren't even close to your real purpose. And slowly, the applause gets hollow, because you know it's not for that version of you. Not the real one, not the one tied to the thing you've been pretending isn't yours. What we fear the most is often what we were built to carry. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary, because that's where our voice is. That's where our power is. That's where the resistance shows up the strongest, because that's where the breakthrough lives. The things we ignore become the chains that quietly control us. You're not free when you avoid. You're just temporarily relieved, and relief is not the same as peace. It's just silence before the storm comes back louder, and it always comes back, because what's meant for you doesn't go away, it waits. It watches, it weaves itself into your thoughts, until you can't ignore it anymore without becoming numb to everything else too. Numbness is the cost of consistent avoidance. You stop feeling the urgency. You stop hearing the call. You stop recognizing your own reflection because you've dulled every edge that made you alive. And when someone asks what happened, you won't have a story, just silence. Just the weight of what you never picked up. Your greatest power is often wrapped in the thing you've been trying not to look at. That dream that scares you, that conversation that haunts you, that decision that feels too heavy. It's not random, it's not irrelevant, it's not small, it's sacred, and it's been waiting. You don't need more motivation. You need the courage to confront what you've convinced yourself doesn't matter, because it does matter. More than you think, more than you've allowed, more than you're ready to admit. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it grows, not to torment you, but to remind you, the future doesn't just belong to the brave, it belongs to the honest. And honesty always begins with the thing you've been pretending not to see. What we won't say becomes what shapes us. You think you've buried it, that fear, that truth, that moment, but it hasn't disappeared, it's only gone quiet. And quiet things are dangerous, because you stop noticing them until they're steering the wheel from the backseat. Silence doesn't mean surrender, but it often becomes it. The more you avoid the conversation, the more power it gains. The more you dodge the mirror, the more distorted your reflection becomes. And one day, you look around and realize you're being guided by ghosts, not of the past, but of every truth you swore you'd deal with later. You don't need words for something to take control of you, just repetition. Ignore the guilt long enough, it becomes your script. Avoid the pain long enough, it becomes your lens. Bury the truth deep enough, it becomes the ground you walk on, but make no mistake, it's still speaking. It's still directing your choices. You're not free from it. You're just unaware of how deeply it's shaping everything. Silence doesn't kill the truth, it just moves it underground, where it becomes harder to find. Where it festers, where it grows stronger because it's been given room, without resistance. You may not talk about it, but it's why you hesitate. It's why you sabotage good things. It's why you run from people who see you clearly. Unspoken things don't lose their power, they gain roots. And soon, those roots wrap around your choices. They strangle your clarity. They squeeze your courage, until all that's left is a quiet hum of hesitation, whispering every time you try to rise. Most people aren't lost. They're trapped inside the silence they've mistaken for safety. They call it peace. They say they've moved on. But the unfinished parts still echo. And that echo becomes the atmosphere, filling every room, affecting every decision, shaping every dream before it even leaves your mouth. You are not just living with silence, you're living by it. Let that sink in. The life you say you want, it's on the other side of the conversation you won't have, the decision you won't make, the pain you won't name, because naming it, that would require confrontation, and confrontation feels like chaos when you've built your world around avoiding it. But avoidance isn't peace, it's paused destruction, it's waiting, it's learning you, it's adapting to your habits, and one day it will speak again, louder, sharper, right when you think you've finally moved on, because silence is patient. And what we don't resolve repeats. Cycles don't break with time, they break with truth. Not whispered truth, not softened truth, but full, direct, clear-eyed truth. And that kind of truth always starts with, what have I refused to confront? Ask it. Answer it, because if you don't, it answers for you, in your relationships, in your confidence, in your decisions. Your silence becomes your script, and eventually your story, and not the one you meant to write. Not the one filled with clarity and strength, but the one built on hesitation, doubt, and half-truths. And it's not that you're weak, it's that you're human, and humans crave relief before they crave healing. But healing never happens in the silence of denial, only in the volume of honesty. So speak it, even if your voice shakes, even if it costs your comfort, even if it breaks the illusion you've carefully kept alive. Because illusions are prisons with pretty wallpaper, and the longer you stay in them, the more your future starts to resemble your past. The hardest truths are the ones that free us, not because they're easy to hear, but because they unlock the rooms we've sealed shut. And those rooms hold the parts of us still waiting to live, still waiting to breathe, still waiting to be acknowledged. So listen, not just to what's loud, but to what's quiet, to what you haven't said, to what you've taught yourself not to feel. Silence may be invisible, but it always leaves fingerprints, and the only way to clean them up is to speak what you feared to name. The things we won't face are the very things blurring our vision. You're not confused. You're not lost. You're just unwilling to look in the direction that scares you. And that's not weakness. It's instinct, because clarity requires courage, and courage requires pain. Most people don't lack answers. They lack the strength to ask the real questions. Why am I really stuck? What am I pretending not to know? What version of myself am I protecting? That's already expired. Those are the questions that burn, that pull the truth to the surface like a wound being reopened. But only what's exposed can be healed. The fog in your life isn't there by accident. It's there to protect what you're afraid to see clearly. That relationship, that habit, that compromise, you keep calling it complicated, but it's only complicated because you won't tell the truth. You say, I don't know what to do, but you do. You just don't like what the answer demands. Clarity isn't found. It's earned through confrontation. You want peace without the process, growth without the mess. Change without the loss, but clarity comes after the breaking, not before. It comes when you admit what's really been guiding you: fear, comfort, pride, old wounds. It comes when you stop rewriting your past just to justify your present. Progress can't grow in a lie. It only grows in light, and that light gets brighter with every truth you speak, even when it humbles you, even when it hurts your ego, even when it threatens the image you've been carefully holding together. Self-awareness is not self-punishment, it's self-liberation. You're not attacking yourself when you face your flaws. You're freeing yourself. You're cutting the rope between your future and your false self. The false self that always says, I'm fine, I'm just tired, I'll fix it soon, but soon never comes, and fine becomes the box you die in. To see yourself clearly, you have to look through the lens of truth, not comfort. Comfort lies. Truth cuts, but the cut heals cleaner than the decay of pretending, because pretending keeps you stuck in maintenance mode, managing pain instead of transforming it. We don't grow by hiding the worst parts of ourselves. We grow by dragging them into the light and refusing to run. That shadow version of you, the one fueled by fear, doubt, insecurity, it doesn't disappear just because you succeed. It disappears when you stop feeding it silence, when you say, I see you, but you don't get to drive anymore. Clarity is a side effect of brutal honesty. And brutal honesty doesn't mean being cruel to yourself. It means no more negotiations with what you know is holding you back, no more protecting your limitations with poetic language, no more calling it just a phase, no more blaming time, people, or circumstances. Because the more you point outward, the blurrier your life becomes. Everything becomes clearer the moment you stop explaining away the truth. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another morning routine. You need a mirror and the guts to keep looking, even when what you see ruins the story you've been telling. Progress starts the moment your excuses stop making sense to you, when you can no longer tolerate your own avoidance. When you look at your habits and finally admit this isn't about time, this is about discipline, this isn't about confusion, this is about fear, this isn't about waiting, this is about hiding. That's when the fog starts to clear. Not all at once, but enough for your next step to appear, and one step of clarity is stronger than 100 days of pretending, because clarity doesn't shout, it speaks once, then it waits, and if you ignore it, it grows quieter. Not out of anger, but out of respect for your choice to remain where you are. The truth will not chase you. It will sit in silence and let you feel the weight of your own delay. But the moment you turn and face it, it meets you like a long, lost friend. Not to condemn, but to guide. Clarity is not the absence of struggle. It's the beginning of direction. And direction is what saves you from wandering in circles of your own design. So if you want to see clearly, don't look further. Look deeper, because the path you need has always been beneath the thing you've been trying not to feel. Every time you delay what you know must be done, you're not escaping the cost, you're compounding it. The conversation you postponed, the habit you swore you'd fix, the truth you told yourself you'd face when things settle down. You think you're buying time, you're not. You're borrowing debt, and that debt collects quietly in stress. In mischances, in the slow erosion of who you could have been, regret doesn't arrive in a moment. It builds, brick by brick, beneath your silence. You feel it in the pause before you answer truthfully. In the ache of knowing you're behind and pretending you're not. In the tension between what you say you want and what you're actually doing. Delay is never neutral. It has a cost, and that cost is usually paid in the currency of your future peace. We tell ourselves we're not ready, but the truth is we're avoiding the bill, because once you start, you're responsible. Once you commit, you have to let go of the safety of indecision, but indecision is the most expensive comfort zone. It keeps you warm for a while, until it burns your bridges without warning. The longer you wait to act, the more distance you put between who you are and who you could be. It's not the world holding you back. It's the pile of not-nows you've built around your own progress. You wanted change, but you didn't want the cost up front, so you paid it in delay, and now it's gaining interest. Ignored responsibility is not forgotten. It waits, and it watches you weaken. Every skipped decision becomes a harder decision later. Every unspoken truth becomes heavier with time. Every delayed start becomes an ending that never begins. You call it being patient, but patience without action is just disguised procrastination. Time doesn't heal what you refuse to face, it just makes it harder to fix. And one day you'll look back at all the things you thought you could put off and realize they didn't disappear. They grew roots. They became walls, walls you now have to climb instead of doors you once could have walked through. Regret is not just sadness, it's memory multiplied by hesitation. It echoes, I knew better, I could have started sooner, I had the chance, but the chance isn't always permanent. Opportunities expire, energy fades, people move on, and the version of you that was brave enough to try eventually stops showing up. Delay doesn't just waste time, it reshapes you. You become someone who waits, who explains, who talks more about what could be than what is. And soon, hope turns into theory, and theory turns into bitterness, because nothing real ever grew. The life you want won't wait forever at the intersection of almost ready. It requires action. Now, even when it's small, even when it's messy, especially when it's inconvenient, because that's where integrity lives, in the choices no one claps for, in the moments no one sees, in the work you do before you feel inspired. Delay is always louder in hindsight. Right now, it whispers. It's not urgent. You've got time. Don't stress. But later, it screams through lost opportunities, through what-ifs, through the version of you that never got built. You're not afraid of effort. You're afraid of beginning, because beginning makes it real. Beginning means you're responsible. Beginning means the clock starts ticking, but the clock was always ticking. You just didn't hear it over the noise of your excuses. The future doesn't punish you for failing. It punishes you for refusing to begin. Failure you can recover from. Delay that rewrites your story. It's not about hustle. It's about honesty. What are you pretending isn't costing you anything? What are you postponing that's quietly unraveling the strength you had? Because even in rest, There's a difference between restoration and escape, and only one of them leads forward. Regret blooms from the seeds we left in the dark, thinking they'd never grow. But they do grow. In silence, in avoidance, in delay, so pick them up, name them, act on them, before they become the reason you one day whisper, "I could have been so much more."